Hey everyone, it's Geraldine. Hope you're all okay. The reason I'm making this video is because I want to make you aware of a recent government letter that's arrived only this week, I think. But before I get started, I just wanted to talk about your comments about what I was wearing last week in my other video. Some of you suggested I was wearing my pyjamas. How very dare you? I was actually. Well, I'm not wearing them now, okay, as you can see. So please keep your naughty comments to yourself. Thank you. I feel like a newsreader. Right, okay, so this week we saw the arrival of an open letter from the Department of Health and Social Care. And don't worry, because I've put the link to this letter in the bottom of this video, you know, when you go like down there. So it's all there for you. It's only 4 pages anyway, but I just highlighted a few things in that letter that I thought it'd be really good if you knew about, okay? So, and it's basically the government acknowledging that we recognise that some children with SEN will have additional needs and behavioural vulnerabilities. See, behavioural vulnerabilities. So it's nice they recognise that as they're, you know, going back to school after the lockdown. And it's basically saying that that they want others to recognise that, schools and settings and so forth. So that's what the letter generally is talking about, okay? It's only 4 pages. So one of the things I highlighted within this letter was this. So this means that from September, says the government, children and young people with SEN should continue to receive the therapeutic and any other specialist interventions they would receive ordinarily. Major, okay? So if anyone says to you, you know, well, that's not going to happen, or, you know, speech and language or the ed site, that's not what the government is saying. They're saying that should go ahead. And if it doesn't, I really would want to know why, because, you know, they have a duty to do best endeavours. And that doesn't mean just phoning a couple of times and then, you know, saying, well, we couldn't get hold of them. Not that I'm suggesting that any setting would do that, but I'm just saying you should expect the same service, but also more, because our children could be traumatised from the lockdown. Something else as well, newsreader. Something else, some pupils no longer required to shield, but who generally remain under the care of a specialist health professional may need to discuss their care with a health professional before returning to school. I cannot stress enough, if you feel that your child shouldn't be returning to school, or it should look differently how they return to school, talk to your health professional. You see, for my son, because, you know, he has some serious medical issues, I don't want anyone else's opinion about my parenting decisions or whether he goes to school or not, except for healthcare professionals. It's the same for me with my immune system because of chemo and radiation. I don't want anyone else's opinion, with respect. I just want to do what Christy say, or you know, what my oncologist says about the whole approach to COVID. So my advice to you is this: please start seeking out your healthcare GP, whoever they are, their opinion about your child, and get it in writing, okay? Because then if anybody challenges you, you know, you have something that says, well, it isn't just me saying this, this is what others healthcare professionals are saying. So who do you need to contact, you think, just in case you might need that backup from them? More generally, where a pupil is vulnerable to attend their setting, you know, school, college, or wherever it is, because they are complying with clinical or public health advice, we expect settings to be able to immediately offer them access to remote education. Did you hear what I said there? Immediately. So once you say to a school, my kid can't come in, or my kid can come in on this day or that day, you know, this is the plan that healthcare want for him, or, you know, whatever that is, they must immediately then provide some form of education. But word of caution, you know, for me with my dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, you can send homework home all you like for Sam, but there's so much of it I won't be able to help him with because I just don't have those skills, and I don't want that pressure on me, feeling like a flipping failure because I can't do that. Also, for my health reasons, I just might not be well enough to support Sam educationally. So be very careful. Yes, they've got to do it immediately to make sure that child does learn, but also be careful what is put upon you. And again, I'm not suggesting anybody would do that. I'm saying be careful, because don't take it on by yourself. you know, you would need support with that if your child is going to get any kind of education from home. So they're saying our focus will increasingly be on supporting local authorities, this is what the government is saying, healthcare bodies and schools as they work towards full provision being restored to all children and young people with education healthcare plans. We are calling on all local services to prioritise support to children and young people with SEN so that they can access their usual therapies and any other help that they might need. So, did you hear what they said? They said that they would expect local services to prioritise. So if somebody was to say to you, well, I'm sorry, but, you know, you're going to have to wait. I'm not saying you don't have to wait. I don't mind waiting as long as I know that you've prioritised and I'm on that priority waiting list. Do you see what I'm saying? I don't want anybody, I don't want you to feel bad because you're pushing. You should be, because it says, the government says that we should be. Now, not every child with SEN or not everybody with health issues is a priority because they trundle along fine. But for some of our kids, they do need priority. Remember, I told you this is only a 4-page letter, so don't get overwhelmed. I'm putting the link in for you. Yeah, I can't get newsreader out of my head. So it's okay to say my child needs priority treatment. Now this bit blew my mind. So the government is saying we have also introduced a catch-up package. So it's actually called a catch-up package worth 1 billion, including a catch-up premium worth a total of, I think I've got this right because it could mean £60, but I think it looks like 650 million because that's my dyscalculia and all that, to support schools to make up for lost teaching time. So this funding obviously is going to be split up. So it sounds like loads, but you know, they're splitting it up with all sorts of settings. However, it still is a fund and it's called a catch-up fund, right? And the funding could be used for, I can't say it, specific support, such as intervention programs, you know, in case there's a behavioural issues, extra teaching capacity, speech and language therapists, educational psychologists, access to technology, something like that. So this is what I'm saying to you. And also this funding will only be allocated to the head teacher, right? So probably no point in having that conversation with the teachers. I mean, I don't know, I'm assuming your email would be to the head. So if somebody says your child is struggling and they don't know what to do, what about the funding? Now, you know what? You might be doing your school the biggest favour by mentioning it, because they have been absolutely going flat out trying to reopen and getting everything ready and working as hard as they can. They might not have seen this. You don't know. So it's called the catch-up package, and the government are releasing a lot of money. But of course, that gets divided up, as I said. But when and if a school or a setting says to you, no, I don't know, we can't provide that, we can't, ask them, say, well, have you had a piece of that catch-up funding? Can we use that for extra teaching or extra this or extra that? Because that's what it's suggesting in this letter, and the head should know about that. And if not, you could show them this letter, can't you? So that's the letter over and done with. It's only 4 pages, okay? Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to talk to you very quickly about, which I've said before, some SEN legislation, SEN law, okay? So Section 42 of the Children and Families Act 2014, local authorities and health commissioners, it says in there, must use reasonable endeavours. Now, reasonable endeavours was quickly kind of, you know, put in there because the reasonable adjustments law isn't going to be as easy to implement in, you know, the COVID, because things are running differently. However, that doesn't mean that, you know, our children have to miss out. So best endeavours would be making sure, as the government letter said, making sure, because this is different now, this isn't a government letter, this is just me highlighting a few points, but the best endeavours, reasonable endeavours, as the government is saying, is make sure that your child gets the services they need as best as possible. So it wouldn't be, you know, we've been trying to contact them and no one's picking the phone up. No, that's not reasonable endeavours. You know, those things have to be in place, because how else could you possibly, you know, be integrating the child back into school if services who were there aren't there now. So, you know, the reasonable endeavours, the temporary one, they're hoping to take it away on the 25th of September. That might not happen because, you know, we could have another outbreak. I hope not. Or it may need to be extended for whatever reasons. And this reasonable endeavours, best endeavours, is for the special education needs and healthcare plan, you know, EHC plan. So they've got to keep that going and using their best endeavours. But all educational settings, right, still have a statutory duty by law then, you know, under Equality Act legislation. That hasn't gone away. It's just that the reasonable endeavours just eased up a little bit because we had to be a bit more creative, okay? But the legislation to make reasonable adjustments in the Equality Act that I'm always banging on about, and some of you've done my training, it's still there. That hasn't gone away. So reasonable adjustments when they go back to school, yeah, I would still expect that, you know, and to do their very best that they can. Many children and young people will have found lockdown exceptionally difficult, both socially and emotionally. So settings should consider any challenging behaviour or social or emotional challenges arising as a response to lockdown. So consider it. So whatever your policies were in your settings before, you can't really apply those policies now if their behaviour is exceptionally difficult, because it could be very traumatic for our kids to go back to school. So a reasonable adjustment would be, do we need to increase a therapy? And remember that funding I told you about earlier? Maybe you'd use it for those pupils that are just not, you know, settling or whatever. You know, what else do we need to do? And maybe that's something they could tap into, because we need to be careful about, you know, reverting to that sort of, you know, look at their behaviour. What we've got to do is look what's behind the behaviour, maybe trauma for the COVID. So yeah, reasonable adjustments for that. So see, these are some of the things that practical measures schools could do that you could be asking them in an email. You have every right to ask. So you could say, are you going to stagger the start? Are you going to stagger the start and the close of a school day? Just put it in an email, you know, a couple of points. Are you going to stagger the lunch times? Because that's going to be hugely important. Are you going to be moving classes to temporary spaces outdoors? That's super important for my Sam when he was much younger, because moving and changing and God knows what else going on, it would really trigger him, and you're going to get all those behaviours that I didn't want to see in him, kind of thing, you know. So it's a good, holding school in shifts, so they're going to reduce the sizes. So you could be asking them these questions, just so to put you at ease, and maybe you could explain to your kid. And there's some other things as well, and that's what questions could you be asking the teacher at school. And so these are some questions about, you know, what steps have they taken then to get ready? So it could be, what steps has the school taken to help ensure the safety of the students, which is what I just said, what measures, you know, at lunchtimes and things like that. How will the school support the mental health of students and combat any stigma against people who've been sick? So I don't want any bullying to arise because that pupil, it might get out that pupil's had COVID or their mum's had COVID or something like that. Because, you know, it could end in bullying. So are they doing anything about stigma in case that does arise? Because that's well important to find out. Just reminded you, newsreader, pay attention, please. How will the school refer children who need referrals to special support? So is that going to look different for schools? Because we need to know, are they having more special support? Are you dipping into that? How does it work? And how are you now liaising with the special support they always had anyway? I just want to know. Because if it's changed and it's not communicated to me, I can't communicate it to my kid. And even if you can't communicate it to your kid because they're too young or for whatever reason, we need to know, don't we? How will any of the school's safeguarding and bully policies change once the school reopens? They might have to look at that, mightn't they? Safeguarding might be completely different. Safeguarding might be different for our kids as well, just because of the behaviourals, if they're traumatised, you know what I'm saying. So I just want to know. How can I support schools safely? Safety efforts, including, you know, like what you can offer schools. So this is the message that I would be giving if Sam was in school now. I'm here, I'm on this journey with you, so's my kiddie, where appropriate, you know. How can I be part of the solution as well, please? Because I know something you don't know as the parent, and you know something I don't know as the educator. So, you know, co-production. What can we do to make this as comfortable as possible for all concerned? And I'm here to help. That's the message that we want to give strongly to school, all via email. Okay, what should I do if my kid falls behind? Well, I've told you, you can ask about that funding, the catch-up package the government is offering heads of each schools and settings. Many schools are making plans for catch-up lessons, so that's great, to bring students back up. You know, there's this new thing called, well, it's not, I don't know if it's new, blended learning. I'm absolutely just love it. I'm blending learning now with cooking. I burn everything, but I blend it with, you know, trying to learn not to burn stuff, and that's kind of my thing. Blended learning can be where you do some schooling from home, some schooling in the classroom. Maybe you do it with exercises, homework, maybe TV, online, radio. So blended learning means you can just mix it up. Well, hello, let me tell you, that's music to my son's ears. Blended learning. SEN and blended learning, I would imagine, go hand in hand. So that is lovely. I love that. So that's something they could do, and maybe they could use some of that funding we talked about earlier to support that. You may want to contact your child's teacher or school to ask questions and stay informed. Well, I've just given you some questions to ask. Be sure to let them know if your child is facing specific challenges, and get those healthcare letters of support should you need it. They may want support because they're suffering grief, or they've lost family members, anything, anxiety. Let the school know. Right, okay, so that's all I'm telling you now. I'm always here, okay? We're here for each other. This is what this page is all about. Don't you dare be anxious on your own, because then you'll be making your own videos in your pajamas, won't you? Please come to the page. You can always direct message me. We'll get through this. It's the community that we are on Facebook. We're only going to do it if we hold each other's hands, we talk to each other, and we don't panic, okay? So I'm going to try and get some letters together, you know, just little letters about reasonable adjustments, and stick them somewhere for you to access. But in the meantime, we got this, okay? And we're going to look after each other. So I will see you soon. Stay safe, and any questions, put it below the video. That's Geraldine Hills, newsreader extraordinaire, over and out. Bye.